The Hunchback of Notre-Dame is a French novel written by Victor Hugo, published in 1831. The name of the book makes reference to the famous cathedral in Paris, Notre-Dame de Paris. Hugo's other most well novel is Les Miserables, so maybe this places things for you a little bit. He's one of the great French authors of the past century. Now, I'm afraid to say I didn't really like this book. Let me explain why. So as a 90s kid, I used to love the Hunchback of Notre-Dame movie, and I know that Disney really changed a lot of their stories, but this was my first contact with that story. Then later on, I went to see a play of the Hunchback, and I also liked that. So I decided to approach the book, and I did really read the whole thing from beginning to end, and I didn't really like it. And the main reason is the unlikability of the characters. I've read other books like this. I'm thinking of, if we're talking about French authors, I'm thinking of Zola's Thérèse Raquin, where you don't like any of the characters, but this was different. The characters, in my opinion, were really insufferable, and they wouldn't stop making mistakes that you could see as a reader from a mile away. Quasimodo is violent. Esmeralda is just not a smart girl. I mean, sometimes you kind of feel like shaking her and saying, "No, girl, don't do that." Phoebus is a womanizer that takes advantage of Esmeralda. Phoebus is in the Disney movie anyway. It's the blonde military captain, but in the movie, anyway. Because as I said, this was my first contact. But I had this image of this nice man. Well, no, he is not. He's just a womanizer who is interested in Esmeralda for those kinds of reasons, and he takes advantage of her. Frollo, who's a priest, is a stalker and a rapist. He is a total creep. At one point, there is this rape scene in the book, and I have to say I was shocked because, you know, with these older books, you kind of don't expect too much graphic detail. Well, I thought for a book published such a long time ago, I thought it was relatively graphic, and I actually had to double check in which year the book was published because I was so surprised. So major creep with Frollo. And those are pretty much all the main people in the story. There's the bard, or whoever what you want to call it. He's supposed to save Esmeralda. He actually falls in love with a goat. And at the end of the book, instead of saving Esmeralda, he just kind of like is worried about the goat and runs off with the goat. So it's a really weird thing. Spoiler, at the end, Esmeralda is executed and Quasimodo just lies down beside her bones and dies there too. Depressing ending, lots of torture, unlikable characters. There's also this issue of really like long links. And anyway, in the book that I was reading, in the prologue, they explain how, I don't know how many years ago, they had lost a little booklet, like part of the book, because I suppose it used to be in booklets. And so they had lost this booklet where it gives a bird's eye view of Paris, like this big description chapter. So anyway, so I was reading this prologue and I was like, oh yeah, well that's nice. Okay, good. When I got to that chapter, I was like, I am not reading through this. It is like 40 minutes of pure description of Paris from a sky view, and no, but it could have remained lost. We wouldn't have missed anything. If ever you decide to read this book, I would just skip that chapter. It's relatively at the beginning. You won't miss anything. Okay, now, to say something good about the book. What really struck me about this book is that it happens in the Middle Ages. Even though the book was published in the 1800s, it doesn't happen in the 1800s. It happens way before that, in the solid Middle Ages of Paris. And I thought it was so fascinating how difficult life was. It seems to me like everybody is just struggling to survive. People seem to be just a very small step away from becoming total savages. And it kind of reminded me of Lord of the Flies of a bit, in the sense that there's just a sheer of civility that protects civilization from descending into total chaos. This is the impression that I got, that it's a very cruel world and that you can't take anything for granted. So anyway, this book, I would say not recommended. If you want to read it, by all means. If you want something French from about the same period, but something that's a bit more entertaining, I would definitely go for something like, for example, The Count of Monte Cristo, which is a great book. I really love that one. I actually made a video on that. If you're interested in that, the link's in the description. And so that's it for today. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.